while I would argue to a large degree the banking cartel has really lost the ability to push gold around the way that they'd like to. They're still in control of silver to a degree. And um, but what's different is that in years past, after the drubbing, it would continue to fall. Like through this week, it would be just plummeting. They can't do that anymore. There's not enough physical silver to continue to naked short when all of these contracts. What did we just say about the deliveries? All of the contracts that were presented stood for delivery. Every single one of them so far in this delivery cycle, 3 days in, every single one is standing for delivery. That's was an anomaly, but it's kind of becoming
more mainstream. Yeah,
it's becoming not the exception anymore.
It's becoming more the rule, right?
And you cannot naked short something you can't come up with. So I think when you realize the LBMA has 155,000 ounces as their float right now, the lowest ever since they've been keeping records, but they're trading upwards ends throughout the day of 1.9 billion ounces a day, or 3.5 times the annual global mine supply. They're doing the same thing with platinum. They're going to get stuck. And I think to a large degree, there are a lot of traders out there that understand this, and they're going to continue to stand for delivery, but in a manner that doesn't trigger that blow up. They don't want to blow it up until they've siphoned everything that they can get their hands on. And then the price will blow up.
Yeah.
And then the price will be settled in Moscow or St. Petersburg or Dubai or Shanghai or any of these other facilities around the world that understand the real value of this stuff that they have been accumulating and producing for years now.
Yeah, I think most people just get it wrong in that sense, is that price is not necessarily the value of what it is. That's the differential. So
I would argue all this stuff is worth more than the dollars that are being used to buy it.
SK wants to know, gentlemen, can you discuss what will happen to silver if gold is revalued? Without going forward and moving on, I can tell you it would go higher.
There's a 90% correlation through all of history, and if one goes, the other will go too. Who knows how high it goes? But you couldn't have gold in the
15,000, right?
6 digit, 5 digit,
and the second part of that, I'm sorry to cut you off, Ann, but how will industry and military allow a skyrocketing silver price to bring ratio closer to gold if gold is revalued?
Because silver is called inelastic, and there's such small, minute amounts used in every component that it doesn't really matter. If you need a fifth or a third or a fifth or an eighth of an ounce in an iPhone, okay, so it costs a little bit more, but your iPhone's already $1,500. So
and going higher.
Yeah, and the amount of silver used in all of this stuff is pittance compared to the price. A Tomahawk cruise missile that uses 500 ounces of silver, sure, it's a lot, but what does a Tomahawk cost?
Right, and by millions? The way, and the government has already had the ability to create and manufacture all of these missiles and everything else silver is used for the last 45 years at pittance of a price.
This is why they've kept it down.
That's right.
They're keeping it down too. But when you talk about industry, because it's used in such small amounts in anything, the amount of silver in this computer is probably amounts to, what, $20? I don't know.
If that.
And so if it now costs, now it's $100, yeah, your cost went up by $80, but how much is the computer? 2,000? So now it's 2,100. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all. More along the lines, to me, it's not about cost as much as it is if the military-industrial complex is the entity behind holding the silver price down, which I believe they are. Why else would you have 8 Western banks holding down the price for so long? The largest concentrated short position in any commodity traded, this tiny little market called silver, it makes 0 sense unless they were doing it for a reason. It's not about holding down the price as much as it is holding down the story. Price is the story. Price allows misdirection of narrative. And if everyone were buying silver, I just saw something on X the other day. If everyone bought 1 ounce of silver in the world, there'd be none left.
Yeah.
So it's more along the lines of saying nothing's to see here, folks. You don't want any of this shit. It's just
keep on moving.
Yes.
Right. Everyone just keep going.
It's not the price as much as it is the decreasing footprint in nature. It's disappearing geologically, and most of what has been used in industry for the last 80 years is in landfills or blown up in bombs. It's gone. It doesn't make sense to recycle a fifth of an ounce of silver or a tiny little bit out of anything that you would have ever used way back when, like a handheld radio or a hair dryer or any first video game you ever played, handheld or any of that stuff, has a little bit of silver in it, and it's in a landfill now. So
Yep.
it's gone.
I've heard the central banks are buying gold and silver direct from small mining
That's
companies
true.
worldwide. What are your thoughts on that, Andy?
It's true, and from artisanal miners, that is very true. And this is all bigger part of disintermediating the marketplace. If you buy it, so one of the theories that he says that China is involved in suppressing the paper price in the West as well, and then going all around the world and buying it off. Not only, I'll get to his point, but buying it from platforms that don't trigger an increase in the price. In other words, the price is set in the West. So if you suppress the Western price and then go all around the world and buy it up from exchanges where the price isn't determinant upon what you buy, that's one way. And a lot of the ways they're doing it is through shell companies. They're buying it through sovereign wealth funds. They're buying it through proxy banks like a commercial bank. But as we've talked about at length, they're going directly to the miners, largely in South America, Peru, and Mexico. As Vince Lancy says, they buy silver from the Mexican miners before it's even called silver, and it's doré, it's concentrate. But they're doing the same thing with gold, and they're doing that throughout Latin America, and they are doing it with the local and artisanal miners. Remember, China is the largest producer of gold in the world, the second largest of silver in the world. All of the countries, it would behoove and benefit them to do exactly that, and to do so in a way that allows them to continue to add. It doesn't affect the price as they're buying it, and it keeps under wraps just how much they own. I think it's 100% happening.
David Pickles wants to know that if he had a spare $2 million, should he buy gold or silver or split between the two?
I think that right now, silver is an opportunity that you don't find ever. I mean, I shouldn't say that because it's here, but it's an opportunity that is very unusual on every level. The word is asymmetrical, lowest downside, highest upside, massive depleting inventories across the globe.
Generational wealth builder.
It is, but I think in the end,
yeah,
the place to be is gold, and that's playing the ratio. You buy silver at 100-to-1 ratio to gold, and then switch it when it gets to 50, which would still be above its 150-year average, but 7 times higher than it's coming out of the ground at. This is it's coming out of the ground at 7-to-1. The difference is, you could have $2 million in gold in a big duffel bag. It'd be heavy. It would weigh roughly 600, it would weigh 45, 50 pounds. You could run to your car with it. 2 million in silver is going to weigh probably 3,000 pounds. I'm not kidding. I mean, it's ridiculously heavy. So if you can get past logistics or have it stored, I think silver is a generational opportunity. But gold, when the music stops, is the place to be. If a genie came out of the bottle and said you get one wish, you can buy one, what would it be? I'd probably say gold, just because. And I think in the end, it's going to be part of a new system. If he said you get 2 wishes, the first one would be that you buy a whole bunch of silver, and the second one would be you
swap it for gold. Right, that would be
that's how to do. If it all works out according to plan, I think it's a unique generational opportunity, once in a generation type of opportunity with very low downside.
The U.S. insurance industry is in deep trouble, not only due to fires, floods, et cetera, but their 8.2 trillion reserve funds are tied up in bonds bought between 08 and 10 interest rates. That's exactly right. Which is one of the reasons that when we talk about the trouble that potential banks are in, it's not far-fetched from the insurance industry as well. When the insurance companies are able to give you yield or return on your investment through whether it's whole life or one policy that they give, where do they get it from? It's from a higher yielding vehicle that they're getting, similar to the banks. So yeah, when things are in trouble, you want to look at the banks and you want to look at the insurance companies.
Or even some of it is just for stability. But if the rates rise, those bonds that they're holding collapse. It's a big deal. And this is when we talk about the Great Reset or Operation Sandman, if that is true, as Mike Adams infers, and one of the smartest guys I know, by the way. If everyone globally all at once dumped bonds and interest rates spiked to the moon, everything would reset. The stock market, the bond market, both inversely correlated, the banks and the insurance companies. loaded with treasuries would implode in a matter of moments. So he's right. And this is a very dangerous thing. I think it's Weiss Research, Martin Weiss, publishes ratings and risk ratings for the insurance companies, but it's something you should be very keenly aware of. And it bothers me because I have an awful lot tied up in
Insurance vehicles.
well, for my company
Right.
through 401k, through deferred comp, all
Yep.
that kind of stuff, and it's with insurance companies. And honestly, I hope Mike's not listening, but part of me feels like it's just you can kiss it goodbye. Now, again, I am the little boy who cried wolf, but I can see that moment, and let's hope it doesn't happen. God forbid, where rates go parabolic. Um, and that's exactly what would happen. So that's a good point.
Gold and silver have once again captured the spotlight as America teeters on the edge of unprecedented financial and political instability. With Donald Trump's recent surge in polling numbers despite multiple legal challenges, and the U.S. economy walking a tightrope of inflation, rate uncertainty, and record-breaking debt levels, it has become abundantly clear that the fiat system, rooted in endless money printing and blind trust, is broken. Gold and silver are not just alternative investments anymore. They are lifeboats in a storm of economic and institutional collapse. Every fiat currency in history has eventually failed. The US dollar, once backed by gold, now floats on the whims of policymakers and central bankers. The Federal Reserve claims to fight inflation, yet it created the very problem with years of near-zero interest rates and trillions in stimulus. And now, with CPI inflation numbers still sticky and consumer sentiment in freefall, they've cornered themselves into a lose-lose situation. Raise rates and tank the economy, or ease and ignite another inflation wave. Either way, fiat suffers. But physical gold and silver, finite, real, and time-tested, thrive. In the last few weeks, silver has quietly outperformed many other assets, pushing past key resistance levels while being largely ignored by the mainstream media. Gold, too, is testing all-time highs amid global central bank accumulation. Why are nations like China, Russia, and even Poland buying tons of gold while telling their citizens to hold cash? Because they know what's coming. They know the dollar is losing its dominance and that the next financial system won't be built on paper IOUs. It will be anchored to something real. Trump's return to the headlines isn't just about politics. It's about economic sentiment. His recent statements slamming the Federal Reserve and calling for a return to sound money are echoing louder than ever. Trump understands that Americans are losing faith in the institutions that manage their money. Confidence in the Fed is near all-time lows. The Treasury is issuing debt at a breakneck pace. Social Security is on track to go bankrupt. Meanwhile, the stock market continues to float on speculation, artificially supported by Fed jawboning and tech hype. But beneath the surface, cracks are forming, young investors are waking up. They're beginning to see the trap. Save in dollars, and you're guaranteed to lose purchasing power. Trust in stocks and crypto, and you're subject to manipulation and regulatory whims. The only assets with a 5,000-year track record of preserving wealth through every war, recession, and regime change are gold and silver. And right now, silver is arguably the most undervalued strategic asset on Earth. Not only is it a monetary metal, but it's also essential in solar panels, electric vehicles, and industrial applications. The supply is shrinking while demand is surging. This is not a speculative narrative. It's a supply chain reality. Meanwhile, America is sleepwalking into another debt crisis. With over $34 trillion in national debt and interest payments now rivaling military spending, the writing is on the wall. The government has no plan to pay it off. The only tool they have left is inflation. Silent theft through currency debasement. If you're holding dollars, you're the victim. Every printed dollar makes your savings weaker. Every stimulus check, every bailout, every new government program funded by the printing press, it's a transfer of your wealth to the state. Look at the banks. Regional banking stress has returned, and big names are warning of a new wave of collapses. If even one major institution falls, a domino effect could ensue. And with FDIC reserves under pressure and trust in banks declining, people are beginning to ask serious questions. What happens to my savings if the system locks up? If you can't hold it, you don't own it, and that's why physical metals are making a comeback. Gold and silver require no counterparty. They cannot be hacked, frozen, or inflated away. They don't rely on government promises or Wall Street gymnastics. In times of war, regime change, or collapse, like the world is inching toward now, they are the final fallback. Just this week, Trump warned that America is closer than ever to losing the dollar as the world reserve currency. That's not alarmism, it's fact. The BRICS nations are actively developing a gold-backed trading currency, and the world is watching. The petrodollar era is ending, and with it, the dollar's dominance. Gold and silver will outlive fiat. They have outlived every empire that thought it could print its way to prosperity, and they will outlive this one too. While Wall Street distracts you with AI stocks and debt-fueled bubbles, the smart money is quietly accumulating hard assets. If the monetary system resets, and history shows it always does, those holding metals will have purchasing power while everyone else scrambles for crumbs.